Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service through a unique partnership with Alaska Public Media. It is Wednesday, July 6th, 2022. And if you have any questions or interesting observations or photos you wish to pass on, you can reach me at peter.chan@noaa.gov. And looking at the National Weather Service's primary online presence, weather.gov, once you go to that web page, brings up a map of the continental U.S., and you can click anywhere on that to get forecasts, watches, warnings, advisories, and much more for any place in the country. You can check up on the locations of family and friends. This Wednesday afternoon, there is heat across the nation's mid and south section there, especially middle Mississippi Valley, a number of excessive heat warnings and heat advisories. Areas in green are flash flood or flood watches from thunderstorms that have produced some heavier rainfall, and then back up in Montana and parts of northeast Colorado, severe thunderstorm watches are in effect this afternoon. Well, for Alaska, we continue to have red flag warnings in effect for areas of the central, east central interior, along with some dense smoke advisories, and those are going to continue through at least midnight Thursday night. There's also a red flag warning in effect for the Copper River Basin. The only difference there, it's because of breezy, very warm, and dry conditions, whereas the red flag warnings for the interior are to account for lightning strikes because they're isolated scattered thunderstorms that could initiate new fire starts. Now, overall, we are seeing cooler temperatures and wetter weather overspreading the southwest with low pressure and a frontal system that's going to press eastward along the Gulf Coast, bringing with it rain and cooler conditions here as we wrap up the week and head into the weekend. And overall, a gradual change in the pattern here by mid-July. We could see cooler and occasionally wet weather across a good chunk of the state compared to just the very warm and dry conditions we've seen through the month of June and into early July. So here are the red flag warnings that we have in effect for the interior that include Tanana, Fairbanks, Northway up through Eagle, Fort Yukon, where the threat of isolated to scattered thunderstorms from lightning strikes could cause new fires. Also dense smoke advisories there. We also have dense smoke advisories in the yellow areas for McGrath on up through at least the northwestern arm of the Alaska Range, and then the Copper River Basin, especially there, Glen Ellen, eastward. There are some very dry conditions that are getting breezy conditions along with warmer temperatures now. So Nenana, dense smoke advisory is in effect, along with a red flag warning. Temperature there at 2 o'clock this afternoon, 77 degrees, and you can see that pall in the sky there, just this smoky haze, visibility occasionally down near, even a bit below 2 miles. Further southeast on the other side of the Alaska Range, Gulkana there in the upper Copper River Basin, red flag warning is in effect mainly for the very warm temperatures, breezy conditions, and very dry conditions. You can see, though, not nearly any smoke issues there as further north. Then up along the Arctic coast, Dead Horse, mostly cloudy, 59 degrees, and there's the potential there could even be some isolated thunder that way the next 2 afternoons, either for Thursday or Friday afternoon. And then further south along the southwest coast, Togiak there, rain and low clouds, 54 degrees. There's even a little bit of smoke mixed in with that. And that wetter, cloudier weather is spreading eastward. Active fires now across the state as of July 6th. We have nearly 230 active fires across the state. And the acreage that has burned so far this fire season now is upwards over 2,370,000 acres. So that's 2.37 million acres of forest and tundra that have been consumed. And according to the Alaska Interagency Coordination Center, we have those red flag warnings for ample thunder and lightning over dry fuels in the interior. We're going to have very warm, dry, and breezy conditions in the Copper River Basin continuing into Thursday afternoon and evening, and some gusty south winds through the passes there of the Alaska Range. And the outlook is overall continued warm, maybe not quite as hot, with isolated thunder at least continuing up there through the end of the week, early in the weekend. The breezy, dry, and very warm conditions on the Copper River Basin will begin to fade off here come Friday and into the weekend. So fire danger at least coming up here for tomorrow, Thursday the 7th. The highest will be very high to extreme there, as you can see in red, located there down through the Copper River Basin. And then areas of the interior and east central still have very high fire danger, and throw in some lightning. That's not good news. That's why those red flag warnings will continue in effect for those areas into the day and evening of Thursday. So satellite imagery. We do have some clearing there. You can see it there across the Copper River Basin, central eastern Alaska Range. Thunderstorms popping like popcorn there over northwest Canada. And it's beginning to turn a bit cooler now in the Panhandle after a very warm 4th of July. Further west, extensive cloud covering through the southwest. We have one area of low pressure working its way there off the coastline there, the YK deltas, and a new low, a triple point low, is going to be forming over the central Alaska Peninsula and just southwest of Kodiak Island, and that feature is eventually going to work its way further east and spread cooler temperatures along with rains along the Gulf Coast to round out the week into the weekend. So there's that low this afternoon, surface low at least, northwest there of Nunavik Island, and a trough coming on in through the Alaska Peninsula. But overnight into early Thursday morning, we're going to see a triple point low develop there just southwest of Kodiak Island in response to some mid-level energy coming in at around 10,000 feet aloft. And then for Thursday, that low will get a little better organized. Rain's pretty good there, Kodiak Island and east side of the Kenai Peninsula. Seward, Whittier could pick up over an inch of rainfall. And some of the higher mountains there, the ice fields could see as much as 3 to 4, maybe locally 5 or 6 inches of rain. So pretty good soaking as we go through Thursday and especially into Friday. We'll continue to see a threat of scattered thunderstorms there across areas of the interior, even along the spine and south of the Brooks Range, and some areas of smoke because, as we said, we have nearly 230 active wildfires across the state that are burning away. So low temperatures Thursday morning, generally lower 50s there in the Panhandle. 50 to lower 50s, or I should say upper 40s to lower 50s south central. Back into the 60s, a few spots up towards Skagway, maybe near 70. Still 70s, Copper River Basin up toward Talkeetna and McGrath. But notice temperatures, at least daytime, won't be quite as warm. Lower 50s for the Panhandle and generally lower 50s, upper 40s, lower 50s for south central areas Friday morning. Then Friday afternoon, generally temperatures will be cooler with some showers there moving into the Panhandle. Upper 50s, lower 60s, still some 70s, the interior areas south of the Alaska Range. And then across the Yukon Valley, lows mild in the 50s, 60-ish there at Fairbanks, lower 40s along the Arctic coast, still mid-80s, Yukon Flats, Fort Yukon over toward Eagle, 83 at Fairbanks. And Friday morning, temperatures generally still in the 50s along the Yukon River, mid and upper Yukon. Some upper 30s near 40, 37 Utqiagvik, 43 over there as you get toward Wales and the areas on the west side of the Seward Peninsula. And still in the 80s possibly here Friday afternoon, continued warm in the east central interior. And then going down through the southwest, lows will generally be still above 50 there as we get up to the middle Yukon, upper Kuskokwim valleys. Mid-upper 40s along the Alaska Peninsula, trailing off into the Aleutians. Thursday afternoon, still 70, McGrath on up toward Ruby, north and eastward. Cooler though, 50s where it is cloudier and raining there across the southwest coast and interior and the Alaska Peninsula. Friday morning lows will generally be anywhere from mid-40s to near 50 degrees across much of the region of the southwest and the Aleutians. And then Friday afternoon, we'll see some temperatures, actually a few degrees warmer in McGrath, again up toward the middle Yukon Valley, getting back into the 70s. And as we go toward mid-month, middle of July, we're expecting an overall cooler pattern, a cooling trend for much of the state, centered on the Yukon Valley, back out through the western interior, as well as parts of the northern Panhandle. And right now it looks like precipitation may average near normal along the south and outer panhandle coast, but near to a bit above normal for much of the mainland, including portions of the intercoastal mountains and inner channels of the panhandle. So keep that in mind. I think the really hot weather is going to gradually begin to fade a bit here in the coming days.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
It's aviation time, and if you have a flight planned Thursday or on Friday, we're going to continue to see areas of smoke across the interior, especially between the Brooks and Alaska ranges, with isolated to pockets of scattered thunderstorms, especially later in the afternoon and through the first half of the night. And IFR conditions will be prevalent Thursday morning, southern two-thirds of the panhandle, across much of the western Gulf, southwest, and back through the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians, as well as up along the Arctic coast. Low pressure is going to be redeveloping southeastward from the YK Delta down across the Alaska Peninsula to just south of Kodiak Island as we go into Friday. Again, Thursday afternoon, those scattered showers and storms redeveloping there across portions of the interior with areas of denser smoke, certainly in the vicinity of the active wildfires. Otherwise, MVFR conditions should generally be the rule there in the panhandle, with IFR continuing over the western Gulf, creeping upward along the Kenai, eastern Kenai into Prince William Sound. And for Friday morning, we still anticipate IFR conditions redeveloping across at least the southern two-thirds there of the panhandle, still holding in the western Gulf and back out across the Bering and the Aleutian chain, also continuing there along the Arctic coast. And for Friday afternoon, thunderstorms will be possible again, both along the Brooks Range, especially the southern side, down through the north side of the Alaska Range, where again areas of denser smoke will prevail through the Yukon Valley as the result of the extensive wildfires that remain active. And looking at past conditions, Anaktuvik Pass VFR conditions are expected Thursday. An isolated thunderstorm could develop in vicinity with more in the way of smoke, especially the further south you fly toward the Yukon River. Same thing at Adigan Pass. An isolated storm could pop up later afternoon or evening with smoke possible there, especially the further south you fly. Lake Clark, starting out holding with IFR conditions as that moisture, some lower cloud cover and rain pushes in from the southwest with that area of expanding low pressure and frontal system. And Merrill, IFR may become MVFR there, at least by afternoon. Rainy Pass should generally see MVFR conditions. And again, the further north and west you fly there of the west entrance up into the Yukon Valley, you will encounter some smoke. Windy Pass, MVFR conditions early in the day, giving way to VFR conditions with smoke the further north you fly. Isabel, also VFR conditions. There could be an isolated storm there once you fly further north of the north entrance, along with areas of smoke. And then the same thing, Matasta Pass, though, there could be an isolated storm develop in vicinity there later afternoon or evening, with more in the way of smoke and isolated storms the further north you fly. Tanita Pass, MVFR, and Portage Pass is going to be a split. IFR along the east entrance there, Prince William Sound, MVFR on the west side. And finally, Chilkoot and White in the far corner, northern corner there of the panhandle should generally be MVFR throughout the day on Thursday. Freezing levels are highest beneath a warm dome of high pressure over northwest Canada. You can see there the Yukon Territory, Northwest Territories up around 12,000 foot freezing level aloft. Eastern portion of the mainland, 10,000 feet plus. And notice the pocket of 6,000 foot freezing levels there over the southeast Bering off the southwest coast. That's associated with the mid-level low that's going to be redeveloping there just southwest of Kodiak Island. And as a result, the greatest threat for icing will be areas of the southwest along the Alaska Peninsula. And they are just southwest of Kodiak Island Thursday at between 10,000 and a flight level of 20,000 feet. Also, there could be some scattered convection coming off the British Columbia mainland that could impact at least the intercoastal mountains of the southern panhandle, 14,000 to 18,000 feet, and some scattered to isolated storms there across the interior. Strongest winds will be south of that developing low there across the Alaska Peninsula, 110 knot max winds on the North Pacific side. Coming down to mid-levels, 9,000 feet or 700 millibars. We see the low pressure circulation there, central Alaska Peninsula. Northwest winds to 40 knots over the central Aleutians, and then down to 3,000 feet. The low pressure circulation is there just between Kodiak Island and the peninsula. And we see winds ahead of it upwards to 40 knots there coming in through the entrance of Cook Inlet, and also on the backside, northwest winds over the eastern Aleutians. And as a result, turbulence surface to 4,000 feet eastern Aleutians, as well as therein through lower Cook Inlet.
It's kind of hard to explain how important weather is to our job. I mean, it really affects everything we do.
In 2018, NOAA launches the GOES-S satellite, which takes its place in orbit as GOES-17. Working together with GOES-16, the two new geostationary weather satellites will provide constant watch over the United States and the Western Hemisphere, from the west coast of Africa all the way to New Zealand, helping monitor severe storms, wildfires, and daily weather patterns. Since its launch, NOAA's GOES-16 satellite has already demonstrated its critical capability for keeping our nation weather ready. Throughout the active 2017 hurricane season, GOES-16 delivered imagery with detail and clarity never achieved before, with 4 times greater resolution than previous NOAA satellites, and delivered this imagery faster than ever before, helping forecasters predict the path of a storm and where and when it will intensify. These accurate and timely forecasts allowed for emergency managers to prepare for evacuations, map flood areas, and save lives.
So the weather matters. The weather matters before the weather happens, and the weather matters after the event happens, because what we're able to do to prepare, allocate resources, provide information to the public through the media beforehand, and what we're able to do afterwards, how and when the waters are going to recede, so we know we can get vehicles with life-saving food and shelter equipment down a particular highway. All of that depends on the forecast.
In the GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to provide critical data for the westernmost United States, Alaska, and Hawaii.
We're talking about getting data updates in just seconds, so we can quickly spot wildfires and closely monitor the wind direction and their intensity. The crispness of the data coming in at a faster rate will also help with fog forecasts. We can see the moment the strata starts to develop or when it starts to move out.
Like GOES-16, GOES-17 carries a suite of advanced instruments, including tools for sophisticated earth sensing, lightning detecting, solar imaging, and space weather monitoring. As an equal partner in the sky, GOES-17 will expand coverage of the advanced baseline imager technology across the Pacific Ocean, allowing meteorologists and local officials to see severe weather systems developing in real time.
So instead of seeing something, say, this large, that as you zoom in actually gets kind of blurry, you're actually going to see something that is much more detailed.
In its GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to monitor conditions in the western U.S. like wildfires, coastal fog, and atmospheric rivers when storms from the Pacific dump heavy rain and snow over the western U.S. GOES-17 will have a major impact on fighting wildfires in California. Up-to-the-minute information and crisp detail allows forecasters to spot fires faster than ever before, even before the first 911 calls come in, and to better track and predict the path of large, dynamic, and dangerous fires.
It's amazing to see what we can get and at the level of detail and the speed that we can get the information down into the ground that makes our decision making way more accurate.
With a view of the Pacific Ocean, GOES-17 will also provide a critical eye over shipping lanes vital to the U.S. economy, protecting cargo and passenger vessels from dangerous ocean storms. GOES-17 will also provide a high-definition view over Alaska, resulting in better weather forecasts and improved monitoring of sea ice, wildfires, and volcanic ash. The advanced baseline imager on GOES-17 can distinguish between clouds, sea ice, and snow cover, a critical need during Alaska's dark, cloudy winter months. GOES-17's geostationary lightning mapper monitors lightning flashes, including the in-cloud lightning most prevalent in severe storms, helping forecasters determine when a storm is forming, intensifying, and becoming more dangerous. Thanks to GOES-17, emergency managers will be equipped with more accurate weather predictions and faster warnings, providing a real impact, saving lives, and protecting infrastructure. Watching over Earth from 22,300 miles above, GOES-S will provide vital data to our weather-ready nation.
Hi, I'm JPSS. I'm a high-tech weather satellite that orbits our planet. I do something called a polar orbit. I circle the Earth from North Pole to South Pole, over and over, while the Earth spins. While I do that, I get lots of information about what's going on around the globe. I watch storms, clouds, and rain. I take the temperature of the ocean, measure air quality, ozone health, and take pictures of the land and sea. This information is used for all kinds of things. It helps us take care of our coasts and oceans and all the amazing things that live there. It helps us monitor harmful weather events like floods and droughts and measure the health of the environment. Most importantly, it helps us predict weather 3 to 7 days in the future. That means I can be a big help ahead of storms, where future warnings are important. I send information to the National Weather Service. They use the information to create forecasts. The forecasts are shared with people all over the country to help prepare for weather emergencies. So you look to the sky and wave. I'll be flying by.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back, and let's look at the marine weather segment and the sea ice edge. The pack ice that remains up there along the Arctic coast is rather getting a bit soft and will continue to melt off. The shorefast ice has broken away too from along the Arctic coast. Otherwise, there's plenty of open water along the northwest coast, especially from Wainwright down through Point Hope and down through the Bering Strait. And as we expect, as we go through midsummer, the melting will continue there in the far north along the Beaufort Sea. For the southeast panhandle, winds will generally be southerly, 10 to 15 knots across the inner channels, 2 to 3 foot waves. Outer banks there, we're looking at west to southwest winds around 10 knots and waves running about 4 feet. And for Friday, winds will continue southerly through the inner channels, 15 to 20 knots, waves anywhere from 2 to maybe as much as 3-4 feet in Lynn Canal. And then along the outer coast, winds will be south to southeast around 20 knots and waves generally running 4 to 5 feet. For the northwest Gulf Coast, off of the Seward Peninsula, or I should say off of Seward there, winds will be southeasterly to 25 knots. Also east-southeast winds there at the entrance of Cook Inlet with waves of 6 to 7 feet. Also some pretty steady rains on the east side of the Kenai Peninsula. Southeast winds 15 knots, 3 foot waves for Prince William Sound. And then by Friday, we have low pressure strengthening there just southwest of Kodiak Island. So we see easterly gales to 35 knots, waves building upwards of 12 to 13 feet off of the Kenai Peninsula. And winds out of the northeast anywhere from 25 to as high as 35 knots there at the entrance of Cook Inlet with waves there of 10 feet. On Thursday, you can see that low pressure circulation there down toward the south end of Kodiak Island. And generally speaking, northeast winds Shelikof Strait, 20 knots, waves 5 feet, and those winds turn around to the west-northwest. 15 to 20 knots on the North Pacific side, 4 to 6 foot waves, and 10 to 20 knots on the Bering side with 2 to 4 foot waves. And the low just kind of sits there on Friday. You can see the counterclockwise circulation around 25 knots. They're centered on the south end of Kodiak Island. Winds will be more out of the north-northwest as you get down along the length of the Alaska Peninsula at 20 to 25 knots, and waves 7 feet off of Sandpoint and 5 feet off of Cold Bay. The eastern Aleutians, winds will generally be westerly at 15 to 20 knots, waves 4 to 5 feet. Kind of a mixed bag as we get out toward the west of Atka through Adak and Kiska. And then on Friday, look for northwesterly winds around 20 knots or so there. The eastern Aleutians, waves 5 to 6 feet, variable winds around 10 knots as we go through the central into the early western Aleutians, and waves generally 4 to 5 feet. Off of the southwest coast, variable winds north of Nunavik Island and around St. Matthew at 10 knots, waves just a few feet. More northwesterly winds, St. Paul, St. George, 20 knots, waves 5 feet. And then northerly winds, anywhere from 5 to 15 knots from Norton Sound out to just south of St. Lawrence Island with waves of 2 to 3 feet. And for Friday, look for kind of a mix of winds there between St. Paul and St. Matthew, variable winds north side of Nunavik Island. And north to northwest winds there, Norton Sound at 5 to 10 knots. And finally, as we go up along the Arctic coast, easterly winds 15 knots. Still some ice there with winds turning more to the north-northwest through the lower Chukchi Sea, and Bering Strait at 10 to 15 knots, waves generally 2 to 3 feet in the open waters. And then on Friday, winds will be largely out of the north there through the Chukchi Sea around 10 knots, waves right around a couple of feet through the Bering Strait, and still ice in and around there, Prudhoe Bay, Katovik area, with winds out of the northwest to west at 10 knots. And looking at the surface weather map, we have a triple point low that'll be strengthening Thursday afternoon just to the south of Kodiak Island. That's going to become the main feature, and as that low deepens, that's going to enhance and create those gale force winds, especially along the northwestern Gulf off the Kenai Peninsula, and also some heavier rains. Whittier and Seward could easily pick up an inch or two of rainfall from Thursday through the day Saturday. And we continue to see the threat of scattered to isolated thunderstorms there across the interior that could enhance fire danger due to lightning strikes along with areas of smoke. But overall, we're going to start to see a cooler pattern, a wetter pattern work its way eastward across the far southern tier of the mainland and up through the Gulf Coast. So that wraps up the show for tonight. Thank you for watching, and join me again tomorrow evening.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.